And they all piled into Bob Dylan's dressing room afterwards for a bit of a party, and I went to Tom Petty's dressing room because I wasn't really in the same league as these people. I mean, George Harrison and Ringo and Tom Petty and Bob Dylan. And Tom Petty came to get me. He said, "Hey, come on to Bob's dressing room." I think the main reason was because we all used to smoke in those days, and I had some very good black hash with me. But the only other thing that Bob said to me was, "Roll have a joint, Bobby." Or, "Roll have a joint, Bobby."
There was a small cadre of people who were part of the Newport group, and in those days, the artists stayed at the Viking Hotel, which is still a very richly famous hotel in Newport. But back in the old days, there weren't so many performers. That they could not afford to have all of the stars staying there. I was there one night for a performance in the bedroom with Johnny Cash and Bob Dylan. That was just, that wasn't planned. They ended up in a room together, and there were maybe 10 or 15 of us in that room. And the two of them were so nervous. I mean, they both had that leg-shaking syndrome, whether it was from taking uppers or whether it was just nervous energy, I don't know.
This guy was smarting off to everybody in the, what do you call the green room, I guess. There was a lot of people there, Don Johnson and Faye Dunaway and Bob Dylan. And anyway, I went out and do my little thing and play on the entertainment thing, and the band couldn't play a 3-chord blues. We kept losing the chord change and screwing it all up. So I just put my guitar down and walked off the stage. And when I came back, I guess they had a TV there that you could see what was. And he told me I better go to the woodshed if I'm going to try to play with the big boys. And I said, I'm about fed up with your bullshit. I said, I've been listening to you all night, and I'm tired of hearing it. And he said, well, I'll just take you outside and kick your ass. And I said, no, you ain't take me nowhere. I said, you won't never make it to the door, And he started to get up off the couch and he had his fist balled up. And so I just knocked somebody out, and he landed right in Bob's lap. Bob said, well, I'm good. Somebody knocked that son of a bitch out. Now every time I see him, he shows a right hand and in just kind of in slow motion. And he said, hey, Betsy, how's that rock cross doing?
When we left Saturday Night Live, there was so many people trying to follow us that the limousine driver drove in reverse through multiple streets and alleys and what have you to get away from the followers. It was just insane. And then when we got to the hotel, there was maybe 500 people on the sidewalk. I mean, it was just hordes. And Bob just looked at me, and I knew what he meant by the look, and why I knew, I'll never know. He literally crawled inside my big coat and disappeared. He literally was consumed by a tent of my coat, and nobody ever saw him.
So you, smuggled him in under your coat into the hotel?
I did, and we went in through the club that was then part of the hotel, the disco club that was downstairs. We had to go in through that entrance to get into the hotel. And so he stayed in my coat until we got into the elevators.
We would go out to Bobby's place, and it really, truly was in the bayou. It was at a swamp. And he lived in this little wooden place, this little, cabin. I remember this like it was yesterday, and with a screen door, and you walk in, and it was very unpretentious. And I walk in, and there is 2 refrigerators side by side, huge refrigerators side by side in this little cabin in the swamp. And so, said, you want a beer or something like that? I said, sure, So they opened up one refrigerator, and it's got nothing but beer kegs in it. And they opened up the other refrigerator, it's got nothing but mugs chilling.
He went to the Singers Club on Saturday early evening, and he came to the Troubadour from 10:30 on until 1 o'clock in the morning, and we got a taxi back to Hampstead, to Belsize Park, where I was living. And the first thing Dorothy said was, I'll put the kettle on, make a fire, Mart. So I had a piano, which was a complete wreck, and we'd used all the easily burned bits. We'd used all of them, and we were now starting on the frame. I had to get the samurai sword out to chop up the piano, and he stood in front of me and said, "You can't do that. That's a musical instrument." I said, "It's a piece of junk. It's just rubbish. Do you think you can repair that?" And he just looked at me, okay. When it stood behind me, and I swung it, and after another couple of swings, I just heard this little voice in my ear. Can I have a try?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the poet laureate of rock and roll, the voice of the promise of the 60s counterculture, the guy who forced folk into bed with rock, who donned to make him in the 70s and disappeared into a haze of substance abuse, who emerged to find Jesus, who was written off as a has-been by the end of the 80s, and who suddenly shifted gears, releasing some of the strongest music of his career beginning in the late 90s. Columbia recording artist, Bob Dylan.